What's up, everybody, and welcome to The Gathering Online. We are so excited to be here for our Easter worship service. My name is Dave Merrill. I'm the executive pastor here at the church, and I'm here with...
I'm Pastor Morgan. I'm the site pastor of the Metro East.
And obviously, you're here as well. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll tell you what, if this is your first time experiencing The Gathering, we would love for you to introduce yourself. Right here, just below, you're going to see a link, and down in the comments below, there's going to be another link. Just click on that. That's our Connect card. That Connect card allows us to reach out to you and invite you into more aspects of the church, and we'd love to be able to invite you in.
You can actually also find that Connect card in our Gathering Now app. Search any of your app stores and make sure to download that so that we can let you know about everything happening with us even after Easter.
That's right. And you can just search Gathering STL in any of those app stores and you will find it. Also, at Gathering Now. That's all of our social feeds. That's our domain name. Is that what they call it? I don't even know. That's what our name is?
Yeah, the handle. That's our handle.
The handle. Whatever the kids call it these days. At Gathering Now. That's what we're looking for. So I have a question before we get started with the Easter service. I've always had this memory of, like, my fondest memory of Easter morning. And so I'm curious, and I want you guys to play along too. So down in the comments or the chat or whatever you guys call it, I would love to know, what is the best Easter experience you've ever had? Like, what's one of the fondest memories?
Yeah, so one of my favorite memories, which actually was more of a tradition, was that my parents would hide jelly beans all around the house for my brothers and I to wake up to and kind of like run around. It was like a mad dash. And, we tried to beat each other, counting how many we got.
Yes.
I guess it kind of got gross because probably after 6 months, we'd always find like one really gross hardened jelly bean. But it was super fun.
We did that one time with, we hid with little pumpkins for Halloween, and we found one. It was like shriveled up and tiny. Anyway, my favorite Easter memory is when I was a young adult, probably in my mid-20s, I worked for a guy who invited a few of us over. Like, his daughter was one of my closest friends, and he would hide eggs around the yard, but he would put like $500 in the eggs throughout the yard, not in one egg. Total.
Sure.
I wasn't taking home like thousands of dollars.
Be nice.
But it was really fun to go home with a few bucks in our pocket. That was one of my greatest memories. But how about you guys too? Make sure you tell us over in the comments. We are heading into the service in just a minute. But before we do, we have to kind of make mention of these tiny little Lego figurines.
He's so cute.
They're
These
really
mini
cute.
figs. They're so adorable. They're of all of us on staff as pastors. And we actually set these up for our next series called We Just Click, which is about relationships and honestly the complexity of it and what the Bible has to say about relationships in our world today.
And a guy on our staff named Joel, he's actually behind the camera right now. Thank you, Joel. He has made all of our pastors on staff. He's made little figurines. So I've got my little black hat and my hoodie, and I love it. I couldn't love it more. You got
I love mine. I feel like I look very posh. I've got like a neck scarf around me or something.
If I could show you all of them, they're super fun. All of our pastors are spot on. But you'll notice something about the theme of this series coming up. Check it out.
Just like our favorite bricks are designed to fit together, God built us to be in relationship with God and with one another. In this series, we'll talk about how the Bible is an instruction booklet for loving connections, romantic and otherwise. Just as bricks gain stability when connected, healthy relationships can make you stronger. Whether you're trying to figure out an existing relationship, searching for one, or ready to write them off entirely, join us starting April 27th to help you make sure that your relationships click.
All right, I am so excited about that series. It's We Just Click. It'll be the series that starts next week, the week after Easter.
Yep.
It's going to be a great series on relationships. But it is not the only thing that we're excited about on this Easter morning, right? There is something a little bit more important on this day. What is that, Morgan?
So every single year during Easter, we give away 100% of our Easter offering. And we want to give it away to something that's so close to our hearts here at the Gathering called the Literacy Partnership. And the Literacy Partnership is a way for us to collaborate and partner with the St. Louis Public Schools and the Normandy Collaborative in St. Louis.
That's right. And so what we do in that partnership is we pair volunteers with students and we help raise the literacy rates here in St. Louis. You can learn all about it right here. Check it out.
Happy Easter. I'm Michelle Burford, Director of the Literacy Partnership here at The Gathering. For those who don't know, the Literacy Partnership comes alongside elementary schools in St. Louis Public Schools and the Normandy Schools Collaborative to help them accomplish their early childhood literacy goals, show appreciation to staff, and provide families with brand new children's books for their home libraries. This school year has brought many exciting developments for our program. We started the year by asking our school partners what they need most, and we've been able to show up in some new ways to help based on that feedback.
When we first started with the Literacy Project, the program looked a little bit different. What the gathering did was ask me for my feedback. With a lot of community partnerships, they might not ask for your feedback. It might be, hey, this is what we're offering. You want it or not? And so I think it's something special and different when someone comes in and says, what do you need? What do you see this program looking like? How would it benefit your school, your teachers, your students? You don't get that often where you're allowed to give that kind of feedback and then receive it.
In addition to sending volunteers into schools to read with students, we're helping to pilot a program in St. Louis Public Schools to ensure pre-K students and their caregivers are ready for kindergarten.
Ready for Kindergarten is an opportunity for parents to come in and get resources and tools for their kindergartners that are getting ready to go into first grade. And also it can be used for preschoolers who are getting ready for kindergarten. So I truly see that it is a workshop that parents can participate in to have tools at home to use daily with their children to advance them in their learning.
We also show the love to teachers and faculty with monthly staff appreciation, and we give away more than 1,000 books to students each year through My Own Library.
Every child and teacher receives a book, but those students continuing to have that reading, the access to books. Without that, students can check out books from the library, but they typically don't have anything of their own.
We were able to reimagine the Literacy Partnership this year thanks to your generosity. Next year, we're ready to expand what's working well to reach even more students and help our school partners continue to meet their goals. I know some of you came prepared to give a gift this morning, but if you didn't, all the ways to give are on the screen. You can even give after you get home. So now, on this Easter Sunday, as the music plays and the basket is passed, please give generously so that we can continue to make a difference right here in our own city.
So as you can see, the Literacy Partnership means so much to us here at the Gathering, and we want to make sure you have a chance to give too. So follow this link down below and in the description to give to the Literacy Partnership. Also, down below, make sure to subscribe and follow us on YouTube and like this video.
And follow us on social media at Gathering Now so we can make sure you stay up to date with all the things that are happening here at the church. But finally, as we're heading into the service, I want to make sure that if you're new, fill out that Connect card so that we can introduce ourselves to you and welcome you into our space. We hope you enjoyed today's service, and we'll see you guys on the other side.
Early in the morning, on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. And she ran to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord from the tomb, and we don't know where they've put him." Peter and the other disciple left to go to the tomb, and they were running together, but the other disciple ran faster than Peter and was the first to arrive at the tomb. Bending down to take a look, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he did not go in. And following him, Simon Peter entered the tomb and saw the linen cloths lying there. He also saw the face cloth that had been on Jesus' head. It wasn't with the other clothes, but was folded up in its own place. And then the other disciple, the one who arrived at the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed. They didn't yet understand the scripture that Jesus must rise from the dead. And then the disciples returned to the place where they were staying. Mary stood outside near the tomb crying, and as she cried, she bent down to look into the tomb. And she saw two angels dressed in white, seated where the body of Jesus had been, one at the head and one at the foot. And the angels asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" And she replied, "They've taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they've put him." And as soon as she said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know it was Jesus. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" And thinking he was the gardener, she replied, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you put him, and I will get him." And Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. And Jesus said to her, Don't hold on to me, for I haven't yet gone up to my Father. Go to my brothers and sisters and tell them I'm going up to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. And Mary Magdalene left and announced to the disciples, I have seen the Lord. And then she told him what he said to her.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to The Gathering. Thank you so much for joining us on this Easter Sunday. My name is Matt Miofsky. I'm the lead pastor, and I want to thank all of you that are worshiping with me online today. Some of you do this every week. I'm so grateful for you. Others of you, maybe you're out of town or a friend shared this with you. No matter what, I'm so glad that you're here this Easter to spend it with me. So when I was in middle school, and kids, you'll have to bear with me if you're watching, I lived in the magical land of the 80s, which meant we didn't have any cell phones. We didn't have even a cordless phone. So if you were waiting for a phone call, what this meant is you had to actually sit right there by the phone, wherever it happened to be plugged in to your house. Now, if you were lucky, you might have had a phone in your room. So when I was in middle school, I had this really cool transparent swatch phone. I brought a picture for you right there in my bedroom. Now, earlier that day at school, I had a friend of mine say to me, hey, Matt, I think this girl, she's kind of interested in talking to you. I think she's going to call you tonight. So I did the only reasonable thing I could think of. I went home and I sat right there in my bedroom by the phone. Not for an hour, not for 2 hours, but for the entire night. I ate dinner in there. And spoiler alert, the girl never called. Finally, after all that time, I got tired. I went to bed. I remember waking up the next morning feeling pretty silly for sitting there and waiting and hoping for something that never happened. I mean, hope can kind of feel that way sometimes. Hope can feel silly. It can feel kind of stupid to wait for something that never happens, to expect something that never materializes, to look forward to something that may not even be real. Just a few weeks ago, I had a guy in the congregation, I think just taking in everything that's happening in the world and in our country, and he wrote me and he said, Matt, isn't hope kind of useless? I mean, hope just leads to high expectations that get dashed. It leads to disappointment. Hope doesn't really seem to make sense in a world that is messy and getting messier. I know a lot of us look at hope and say, what does hope do to change the reality of losing a job or going through a divorce or the death of a family member or the unjust deportation of an innocent man? I mean, how does hope fix any of this? In fact, one of the most famous skeptics ever put it this way. He said, hope is the worst of all evils, for it prolongs the torments of man. That was Friedrich Nietzsche. I mean, that's pretty harsh, and yet I think that speaks to how a lot of people feel, a lot of you feel, especially right now. Is it really worth it to hope? You know, the past 6 weeks here at the Gathering, we've been exploring the last days of Jesus' life and the intense emotions Jesus felt. And as we've looked at stories of Jesus navigating anger and disappointment and sadness, we've gained real insight into how to navigate those same emotions in our own lives. But I thought today it'd be really fitting to add one more emotion to that. And it's that emotion, it's that feeling of hope. Hope, especially right now, is hard. What is hope? I mean, the Bible, for its part, talks about hope a lot. It never gives us a nice, neat, perfect definition, but one of the clearest glimpses of what hope is, at least according to the Bible, we find in Paul's letter to the Romans. He writes this. He says, we were saved in hope. Now, if we see what we hope for, that isn't hope. Who hopes for what they already see? But if we hope for what we don't see, we wait for it with patience. Hope is expecting something that you don't yet have. Hope is expecting something that you can't yet see. And the resurrection, Easter, is a declaration that hope is real and hope is worth it. And so today, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about hope. Because hope right now, I think, is really hard to find and yet more important than ever. And so I want to speak to all of you that wonder, is hope real? Is it worth actually feeling? So I want to spend a little bit of time looking at what the resurrection story actually teaches us about the character of hope. Well, first, the resurrection teaches us that hope starts in the dark. Hope starts in the dark. John begins his story by saying this: early in the morning, on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. Now, I'll stop right there. That might seem like an insignificant detail, but it's really important. It says that hope began while it was still dark. In the dark, Jesus was already up out of the tomb and doing something new. The problem is that in the dark, you can't see it yet. Hope begins before you can see it, before you can recognize it. And this is actually a theme throughout the resurrection story. Just a little bit later, it says that Mary is talking to Jesus, and yet she doesn't even recognize that it's Jesus. A little bit later, two guys are traveling after Jesus has died, and Jesus is actually right there alongside them, traveling with them, talking with them for over 8 hours, and they don't know that it's him. So often, Jesus is there already doing something, but they just can't recognize it yet. And that so often is true in our life, mine and yours as well. Jesus is doing something new in your life, even right now. Jesus is doing something new in your life, even and especially when you can't see it. I have a friend named Chris who got sober 11 years ago. In fact, one Easter, about a decade ago, he actually shared his testimony right here on Easter Sunday. And his testimony is powerful. In it, he talks about hitting like the proverbial rock bottom. A lot of you can testify to what that's like. And he said, he got to that day, that rock bottom. It was like the worst day he had ever experienced. I mean, he had made a total mess of his life. He had hurt and disappointed a lot of people that he really loved. He failed to be the person that he wanted to be. He felt guilt and felt shame for it. He was finally checked into a rehab facility. He was sitting there in like a hospital gown, all alone, isolated, completely vulnerable. He was in the spiritual dark. And that day, that rock bottom in many ways was the worst day of his life when he was going through it. But what's incredible is that now, 11 years later, to hear my friend Chris tell that story as I have so many times, he talks about that day not as the worst day of his life, but actually as his turning point, as the first step, the beginning of hope. He couldn't tell when he was going through it, but right there in his worst moment, Jesus was doing something new. Friends, I tell you that story because I want you to know that so often your worst day is actually your first step. Your worst day can actually be the first step to the rest of your life. Hope starts in that place that we can't see it, when we're in a place of grief or we're in a place of darkness or we're in that sort of rock bottom. That's where Jesus is often present, beginning to do the work. We just can't quite recognize it yet. And some of you right now might feel like you're there. Maybe it is a really tough season. Maybe you're in a tunnel where you don't see any light at the end. But remember that when you're in that place, fear, anxiety, isolation, grief, when you can't see the way forward or the way out, Jesus is working right now. Jesus is beginning something new in your life right now. Right now, God is turning your low point into the first step in the rest of your life. It's just that it's dark, and in the dark, it's hard to see. Perhaps there's hope that you aren't seeing right in front of you right now. And even if you can't see it, I want you to know it's there. Hope starts when it's dark. Second thing that the resurrection story teaches us is that hope takes time. Hope takes time, meaning that hope is often slower than we would like. There's this really funny detail of John's Easter story. It's kind of interesting. There was this race, and I don't know if you've ever paid attention to this, but listen to the way that John says it. It says that now Peter and the other disciple left to go to the tomb. They were running together, but the other disciple ran faster than Peter and was the first one to arrive at the tomb. Bending down to take a look, he saw the linen cloth lying there, but he didn't go in. Following him sometime later, Simon Peter entered the tomb and saw the linen cloths lying there. I've always wondered, why is this detail in here? Why is this part of the story here? Why are they racing? Why does it go out of the way to tell us that Peter, Jesus' best friend, was so slow in getting to the tomb? Why this detail? And I started to think maybe because this is what hope often feels like. I mean, some of you are like John, and I'm really happy for you. Like, you get there fast. Maybe you're quick to believe. You're quick to change. You're quick to feel something. You're quick to have faith on Easter. But others of us, man, it just takes us a longer time to get to that place of hope. Maybe you're more like Peter. And this sort of stuff comes slowly in your life. You're carrying more questions, maybe. You're carrying more guilt. Maybe you're carrying more life experience, more hesitancies. And sometimes that can make you feel like you're behind, like it may never come. But I want you to know you are not behind. Hope is working its way through your life, but hope is on its own schedule. 7 years ago here at the gathering, things were going really well in so many ways. We had 2 sites. We were thinking about starting a third one in Webster. We were in this old church building, our McCausland site was, and we had 4 worship services. And I knew that we needed more space. We were going to need to build a building. And so we started to pray, and we started to talk, and we got support, and we were ready as a congregation to do this. We even went so far as to get architects. We kind of knew what the building was going to look like, so we were ready to go look for land. And when we started this process, I was certain this is what God wanted to do in our church. And I thought, we'll find some land. Maybe it'll take a few months, 3 months, maybe even 6 months. But by the end of the year, we're going to be breaking ground and moving forward. And so we started looking, and we looked not just for 3 months, not just for 6 months, not just for a year or 2 years or 3 years. It took us over 3 years, and we were still looking. I went into so many meetings where I was told no, where they said we don't want a church here, where something wouldn't work out. And I was beginning to get so frustrated, so angry. Nothing was beginning to materialize. I thought that I was doing everything that God wanted me to do, that I was being faithful to what it is that God was calling us to do as a church, and it just wasn't happening. And meanwhile, I'm seeing it work for these other places and these other pastors, and I just felt like something was wrong with me. And I know that some of you feel the same way about something in your life right now. I suspect that there is something that you are hoping for even right now that is taking much longer than you had ever expected. Maybe it's something personal, like moving through grief or recovering after a medical condition or finding a meaningful relationship in your life or feeling like your career is where you finally want it to be. It might even be your faith itself. I suspect that quite a few of us feel this way about the world that we live in, that the country that we live in, that looks so distorted and so broken in so many ways, and say, how long is it gonna be until we sort of wake up and do something about this? We want change now in our lives. So many of us want joy now. We want justice now. We want faith now. And if that's you, I want you to know you're not the only one that is like, why isn't this happening faster? But know this: just because hope is delayed does not mean that hope isn't coming. Hope comes, it's just more slowly than we would like. And friends, hope is not going to look the same in your life as it does in the life of someone else's. You know, I was reminded just this last week that sometimes hope is worth waiting for. I have these irises in my front yard. If you come to my house, you'll see them. I mean, I brought this picture so that you could check them out. And the funny thing is, these irises are beautiful. I mean, they're purple. They'll last for like over a month. But if you look in right in front of those, and I brought a picture so you could see, there's these other irises. And I remember when I first moved into the house, these were already there. So I see these irises blooming. They're beautiful. Like weeks go by. They even begin to die off, and these other ones are still just green, and not even a sign of a bud or an emerging flower. And I thought to myself, what's wrong with these things? I mean, I honestly thought about digging them up. But then, after these other ones died, a month later, these other irises began to bloom. A different color, I guess a different variety. I don't know why they bloom so late, but every spring, I just know to expect that these bloom about a month later than the others. But when they do, they're gorgeous. They last a little longer. They're there even in the heat of the summer. I mean, Peter might have been the last one to the tomb, but don't ever forget this. He got to actually experience more than John did. He learned more, he absorbed more, he went on to become the leader of the movement that Jesus would start. Here's the thing: God was doing something in Peter's life. Jesus was up to something in Peter's life. It may not have come as quickly as he would have wanted it, but Peter just needed to learn to trust that Jesus was doing something in him. And friends, I want you to know that Jesus is doing something in your life too. You just need to learn to trust it. Remember this: it's not how fast Jesus is moving in your life, but where Jesus is taking you. It may be happening slowly, but trust that God is doing something in your life. Hope just takes time. But then finally, the resurrection teaches us that hope may start in the dark. Hope might take time, but hope always delivers. You know, when it comes to the story of Jesus, we spend so much time talking about like the suffering, the death, the empty tomb, that we sort of forget like what happened after this, like after the resurrection. We kind of forget that Jesus went around to every one of those disciples and completely changed their life. I mean, Mary, this person in deep grief, suddenly had her life transformed into joy and boldness. Peter, who was racked with guilt, we know this because he denied Jesus, all of a sudden, he got to experience this profound forgiveness when he met Jesus, would go on to lead the movement. We have Thomas. Thomas was famous for doubting, not thinking anything new was ever going to happen. And yet Jesus changed his doubting into this strong confidence of faith that he was able to go out and to share. I could go on, but every single one of them, we forget just how different their lives looked before Jesus and after Jesus encountered them. Every single one of them, on the other side of their struggle, on the other side of their anger, on the other side of their fear, on the other side of their grief, was something new and better. There was a life far greater than anything they could have imagined. The best part of their life was actually right on the other side of the hardest part of their life. And they had no idea. Just when they thought life was over, it was actually just beginning. In fact, I love the way that John ends the story. He ends it by saying this. He said, "Then Jesus did many other miraculous signs in his disciples' presence." Signs that aren't recorded in this scroll. Jesus did many other things as well. If all of them were recorded, I imagine the world itself wouldn't have enough room for the scrolls that would be written. I love that. John's basically saying, look, there was so much good stuff after Jesus rose, I can't even write it all down. Too many miracles, too many turnaround stories, too many transformations, too much good stuff that if you were to write it down, there's no amount of books in all the world that could contain it all. There's literally so much more to the story and your story that we can't even begin to scratch the surface of it. Because our hope is rooted in Jesus, because we believe in Jesus, because Jesus is risen, our hope is not in vain. It delivers every time. And friends, beginning today, your life can look different with Jesus in it. Your life can look different because of what Jesus can do in it. If you hear nothing else, I want you to hear that today. Your life can look different with Jesus in it. And friends, this hope is not a naive optimism. This is not just waiting for something that may or may never happen. This is based in fact. This is true. And this is real. And the reason I know it's real is because for over 20 years, I have gotten to see what Jesus can do in people's lives. In fact, some of you listening, you know this because it's true in your life. I know people right now that are listening that have experienced unspeakable grief, losing someone that they love, and yet they start meeting with other people who've lost, sometimes in random rooms of our church, on a random night of the week. They start gathering and they start talking and they start praying together. And I've watched Jesus change their crying into new days that where they get to experience joy on the other side of grief. I've seen that happen. I know some of you that are listening right now that have been so racked with anxiety that you thought you would never get any peace from it. And you feel so alone with it, but then I've watched you begin to reach out, to accept the help that God wants to give you, to reach out to the people that God has placed around you, even when you don't feel like it. And you've had that sense of anxiety begin to be replaced by a sense of calm, something you thought you'd never have. I've gotten to see that. I know there are some of you right now listening whose lives were a complete mess because of drugs or because of alcohol or because of gambling or because of sex or because of something else that you were doing, try to cover up the hurt you felt, but then you finally confessed it. You finally decided to rely on help from God, and God has delivered you to a place of freedom and recovery. That has happened. I've gotten to see people right here who've been hurt by someone and have carried around with them this sort of anger and this bitterness, only to finally let it go and to practice the forgiveness that Jesus offered them and to feel that weight begin to be lifted off of them. I have seen people who have had every reason in this church to stay comfortable. They have good jobs, they have plenty of money, they're successful, and yet I've watched their eyes be open to the injustice that they see in the lives of other people, and they've decided that their comfort means nothing if they're not also fighting for that same comfort in the lives of other people. I've seen right here in this church, some of you listening, I've seen relationships healed, marriages saved that people thought were destined for divorce. I've seen busy people who are just doing their job and going along with kids and full of busy schedules finally make room for faith and discover that what they felt like was a missing piece has finally fallen into place in their life. I've seen some of you who have been told by the world and by politicians that you don't exist, that you're something to be stamped out or censored or banned. I've watched you find community and find a place of belonging in this church and recognize that you can bring your whole self here as somebody that God created and that God loves. I've seen some of you with minds clearly made up about something begin to soften and change in light of Jesus' call to love. I've seen some of you who never thought you'd be in a church suddenly come to faith. I could go on, but if I did, no amount of time, no amount of Easter sermons could ever contain the amount of good I've seen Jesus do in the lives of people. And so, friends, I want you to know that sometimes it feels like it's never going to happen. But today I invite you to give Jesus a chance to see what Jesus can do in your life as well. There is reason to hope. I'll just close here. I never got that phone call that night from that girl, but I will say this, that it wasn't that long after, just a few years later, somebody told me a very similar thing. Some girl in high school was going to call me. I went home, I waited. That girl ended up calling me, and 30 years later, I'm really happy to say I still get to be with her. Friends, hope starts in the dark before you can ever see it. Hope takes time, and often it's much slower than we ever would have hoped for. But friends, hope, Jesus delivers every single time. Hope is hard to come by, I know, right now in the world we live in. But don't let go of it. Hold on to it and give it a chance. Let's pray. Gracious and holy God, we are so grateful for the empty tomb, for the reality that Jesus is not dead but alive. Your Spirit is not dead but alive. Your presence is not gone, but it is here, and it's even at work in our lives. So God, help us to trust you when we can't see you. Help us to trust you when we're waiting much longer than we would want. God, help us to trust that you are doing something new in us even today in Jesus. And I pray for all those who may be doubting this, who may be skeptical about this, who may be ready to walk out on this, to give you a chance to do something new even in our lives today. So do that in us this Easter. May the resurrection of Jesus be made real in our lives. And may we all hold on to the hope that you are indeed doing it. It's in Jesus' mighty name that we pray, and together God's people said, amen.
Wow, that was an incredible service. I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as we did. Morgan, what'd you think?
It was amazing, powerful, moving. I loved it.
Me too. I'll tell you what, guys, before we head out for the day today, don't forget, if you're new, fill out that Connect card. They can also follow us on social, right?
Yep. Follow us at Gathering Now, Instagram, Facebook.
Also,
anything else.
subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hey, and don't forget that next week we've got that new series called We Just Click. It's going to be filled with fun topics about relationships and fun minifigs, so you don't want to miss out.
Yeah, minifigs just like us.
All right, guys. For now, be sure to share this with your friends so that everyone can experience the good news of Jesus. We'll see you next week. Bye.